Hello, and I can kick it off, Kenny.
Yeah, go ahead. Of
Okay.
course.
So this is the first Ask Ops, the experimental Ops Ask Me Anything that we're going through at each section. And today we were going to talk about the package stage. So we have a list of questions already added to the agenda. So thank you for adding those. And of course, we're open to fielding any questions that come up that aren't there. So feel free. I think we can go through the agenda and start to tackle the questions. So Sam, you have the first question. You want to verbalize that?
I'd love to, yeah. Thanks for doing this. Yeah, my question was about the effort to achieve tier 0 level reliability for the registry, container registry. And I know that a Postgres database is part of that architecture, and probably for good reason, but I also know relational databases are often a single point of failure in systems. So I was just curious kind of what the latest thinking is on that and how we address that.
A lot of this, the conversations around the tier 0 availability are relatively new. So the one of the things that came from it is we opened this issue that proposes some ideas and some investigations for how we could possibly do this. And one of the investigations is how do we make the Postgres database 99.999% available. There's not been a ton of ideation and iteration that's gotten into that proposal yet, but we will do that investigation. And what we're trying to do is work through the architectural evolution process. So I know Jagorish and Joam are going to work on a blueprint for registry high availability, and they'll take into account the investigation, not just for the Postgres database, but we're also thinking about how can we improve the redundancy and availability of the auth service that the registry reaches out to, and any other dependent services. So there, I linked to open issues and epics. We have not started yet on the architectural evolution, but I know that we have some people slated for it. So we're hoping to pick that up in the next week or two. Cool. Does that answer your question, Sam?
Yeah, thank you. It looked like maybe Dan had a
Dan, do you want to?
Yeah, so in an effort to sort of give other members of the team opportunities in terms of architecture, Tom's actually going to be helping out with the architecture blueprint, and Grzegorz is going to be sort of guiding Tom on that so that he has opportunities to do that stuff as well. So I just wanted to add that in.
Oh, cool. That's great. Yeah, I think having more people look at this, the better, since this is, new for us. So, Christopher, you want to vocalize your question?
Yeah, I just like a lot of great work being done here, and I really appreciate all the hard effort. And I hate to ask this question, but we could come up with a great solution, but it may not be cost effective for GitLab, and that's one of the considerations around this. Is that something we're thinking about, or is that even as part of kind of this efforts charter?
Yeah, well, cost is definitely top of mind for us for the registry, because as you know, for .com, we spend a lot of money every month just on storage alone. So we need to consider cost as part of any work that we do. But I think you might be referring to the cost of actually just hardening up these other services as well, right? Like if we make the auth service highly redundant, what does that cost us? I think that it hasn't come into play yet because we don't have a proposal, but I think that that's something that I'll definitely be leaning on as something we should consider.
Yeah, I would encourage the team not to over rotate in either direction. So I've seen too many times where organizations, they'll say, oh, we can't do this because it's too expensive. And then I've seen other organizations where they say cost is irrelevant. We're gonna spend, whatever we need to get us to 6 nines as an example. So really coming back with kind of like that view of it as far as, this is the solution. This is how we view the cost associated with that solution will I think, help us all from that perspective.
Yeah, great point. I think, thank you for bringing that up. Sam, I think you had the next question.
Yeah, it's probably a good segue from that discussion. I was interested in tier value and any plans around that in package. Some of those same recent events, I think have highlighted that there's customers that would be willing to pay for additional guarantees, higher SLAs, better disaster recovery type features. And so I'm wondering if we're thinking down that road at all.
Yeah, thanks for that question. We are thinking about it, but for the short term, I don't think we're going to be adding any tiering value. A lot of the things that we're doing for the registry to make it more available and redundant are things like changing some of the infrastructure or improving the availability of that auth function. Those don't feel like tier value. Those feel like core things that we should do, unless, like Christopher mentioned, there's some cost associated with them that we need to pass forward. The container registry is a little bit tough to monetize because it's been sort of a commoditized feature. Like if you look at the market, JFrog has open sourced their container registry. Obviously Docker Hub is charging for pulls now. So it seems like the way that people are charging for container registry services is they're charging for storage and they're charging for data transfers and things like that. That could be something we do, but I would want to avoid making any premium features. We are talking about, with some of these enterprise customers, the idea of creating a push-pull mirror that is multi-cloud or on-prem and cloud. Those are opportunities, I think, for tiered value, but there's some validation into, is that one or two customers that want that, or is that all of our enterprise SaaS customers that want that? And if so, is there something that we could do? But there's a lot of work earlier on just in improving the overall like connective pieces to the registry before we even get to those. For packages, there is more opportunity for tiering. Generally, the way that I'm looking at it is that pulling, installing, and publishing packages using either a local GitLab repository or one of the common repositories like npm.js.com, that should all be in core because every developer is doing that. But as we start to say, well, we want to connect to your Artifactory repository and your Nexus repository, and then you have a consultant that you're paying to host some packages on S3, well, that sort of functionality should be tiered because that is more focused on the enterprise customers. And I really see that value starting to unfold in the latter half of 2021 when we may start to tackle that. Kenny, did you want to add your question or comment?
Yeah, it wasn't a question, it was a comment. But I don't know if we skipped over
Anoop. Yeah, we skipped
Anoop.
Anoop.
Yeah. Anoop, do you want to vocalize your
I think you answered my question.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think my comment was this. I think the Gitly cluster example is a recent example that might be illustrative here. That they, you're right, Tim. Like you don't want to say, well, you can't run an architecturally sound package for registry unless you pay us money. Kind of goes against our core principles. But I think you can lean on that we only offer support at certain tiers. And so if you have now deployed in your self-managed environment this complex architecture, we are available to support you in issues you might have, but that you get that support at paid tiers.
That's a good point too.
I'll just add to what Kenny said. So that's on self-managed, but on .com, your cost becomes a factor because now you're managing it on behalf of the customer. So that's where you will have to figure that out. But yeah.
Yeah, there will be questions that come up, especially once we have more ability to do things like potentially mirroring a person's .com registry. There's hard costs that are associated with that and additional value that are associated with that. That's why I think those are opportunities for tiered value for the registry. But we'll see as we get further along into 2021.
And if you can think of the right cost metric, that'll be good here to focus on, because my suspicion is that the amount of containers and the amount of storage spend that we have on containers will far exceed the cost that's required to create an architecturally robust, highly available package system. It might even dwarf it in lower, if not less than 1% of the cost. So whatever that cost metric is will help make that decision.
Yeah, that's a good point. We have a cost metric now, it's just looking at cost of storage. I think we can improve that, especially once we have this manifest database that will allow us to, run on zero downtime garbage collection and also know much more about how the registry is being used. It's possible that we may come up with a new cost metric or a better way of looking at costs. That right now we're kind of just have a total number. Okay, it costs us this much and storage. It'd be much better to say, well, how does that break down by customer and by type and things like that? And we can make more informed decisions. Okay. Actually, Anoop, you have the next question.
Yeah, I think so. I was going through the direction page. By the way, I love this AMA, and it sort of created an opportunity for me to dedicate time and go through the direction page again. So thanks for the team to do this. I saw the mention of AWS and Azure on the competitive landscape, but I did not see Google, and I wanted to check what the reason was.
Yeah, I'll add them. They should be there. But just to mention, so for Google's container registry, we do hear about that more regularly, but in a recent survey, we only saw about 3% of respondents out of 100 are using Google compared to like, it was something like 25 or 30% on GitLab and on AWS, and then Artifactory was another large percentage. So it's not as common, but yeah, we do hear about it sometimes, and it would be good to know what they're doing, especially around consumption pricing and storage pricing. I think that they have, and scalability, they have a lot of things that we could learn from there. On their packages feature, it's currently in invite mode only right now. It's an alpha, and they offer support for Node and Java. They support Maven and Gradle, but it's invite only right now, and so it's not a fully mature product. And I haven't heard of any customers or users using it, although I'm sure that there are people who are. But I'll add both of those notes into the direction page to make it clear of what the status of Google's product is.
Thank you. I guess, Tim, you had questions.
No, I think, yeah, I think you can go into the question 4. The next one is yours.
Yeah. On cloud providers, are there any specific insights on how they are approaching space constraints and high availability constraints? And do you see them using the fact that they have gobs and gobs of storage as a competitive sort of differentiator or advantage in these deals?
Well, I haven't come up to someone who said that they're using Amazon package artifacts or Google packages instead of us. So it's usually that we run into people that are using Artifactory or Sonatype. But the thing that I would say Azure is probably the furthest along. And I would say the thing that the cloud providers do is they obviously have high availability and redundancy figured out, and also the billing around storage and data transfers is all built into the system. Whereas for us, we don't have those mechanics yet or the ability to do that. So I think that's a place that as we start to think about being able to purchase additional storage and display how much storage you're using it for a given container repository, I think we could learn from them. And that'll be something that we should really focus on over the next couple of months, especially as we target displaying how much storage is being used in March and April. And does that answer your question?
Yes, thanks, Tim. I think John has the next one.
Thanks, Anoop. I was just typing. I think that Google's container registry cost is based off GCS, the Google Cloud Storage model. I have a link I'll post in. I believe I read it was like 0.26 per gig or something like that. I'll find a link and drop it in here. So
for them, a package is just an object, and they're going to charge it just like an object.
That's my understanding, Anoop.
That's interesting. So that does help us understand how we have to deal with this on cloud.
There you go.
Thanks.
Sure. Thank you.
I guess I have number 5. Have you seen critical requests to have better search for package artifacts and metadata, or for that matter, containers in our advanced global search?
It really depends on the level of adoption of the customer. So for the container registry, yes, we hear that very often, that people want to be able to have better tools for searching and filtering. For a while, this has been blocked by the way that we're storing the container image manifests in object storage versus Postgres. So that'll be something that as we move towards the Postgres database, we'll be able to unblock those searching and filtering capabilities. For the package registry, it's less common. If we look at a distribution of adoption, there's something like 10 or 15%, and maybe Steve can correct me if I'm wrong if he knows the number offhand, but have projects with more than, let's say, 500 packages or more than 1,000 packages. So we're starting to hear it. I'm starting to hear from our customers that are heavy users of Maven and NPM that they need the ability to search and also have a programmatic way of deleting packages as well. So some sort of policy, but it hasn't been critical. We have a validation issue that's open that we're hoping to get to in the next milestone or two, but we're just starting to hear it as we're seeing adoption growing.
Thank you. I have item 6 as well. So I clicked through the user research issue, which is over a year old and closed, and I wanted to check if it's done. We never did it, or are we thinking of doing something else?
Yeah, the research issue, I should change. I'll add a note to myself to remove that item from the direction page. We haven't really been using that UX research issue. We're using more of the problem validation board, which has all of the list of issues and what's in motion. And then that's much easier to maintain because we maintain it with labels as opposed to going in and maintaining the UX research issue. So I'll update the direction page to change those links. And then just speaking to research, we have a couple of problem validation research issues in progress. One is around, we just mentioned search and deletion of packages. And the other is around some of the future container registry work around, do these large enterprise SaaS customers need to be able to a push-pull mirror of their container registry. We heard that from a big customer recently, and have some plans to talk to other customers that are in that same space. And then on the solution validation side, Ian and I are working on a 3-year vision. So that includes mocks that we can go and put those in front of our VIP customers and walk them through what themes we want to have and how the app will look to accommodate those use cases. And we originally did design and validation of a new container registry UI, but that was a while ago. As we start to get closer towards being able to support that functionality, we're just doing a revisit and a solution validation to make sure that the things that we designed a year ago are still valid, or 9 months ago are still valid. So that's sort of the research problem and solution validations that we have in motion right now.
Thank you. I guess I have item 7 as well. Container registry direction. This one is close to my short-term goal post, and I didn't see the storage.
I'll add it. I've been avoiding it because I know that we have not supposed to be talking about it, or it hasn't necessarily been public, but now that it is, and we have a date of April 2021, I think it can be added to the direction page. And this is something that people definitely want, is to be able to see how much storage is being used by the container registry. So I'll make sure that it's in there. I'll update that today. But there is a link to the epic and the issue, which is planned. And all of that, of course, is dependent on this manifest database in Postgres that we're talking about, but we're trending well for that right now.
Awesome, thank you.
Cool, I have the next one. Thanks, Tim. One thing that I've known from the start of Package is that we kind of had structured the group to pursue this vision by encouraging community contributions of package formats that weren't in our kind of like top priority list. And I can recall a number of them that have come in from community contributors, but I'm wondering what the team's perspective is on how successful that's been, if it's been a burden to review the contributions, if it's generally been a success. How do you guys feel like that's been going?
I could start to answer that, and then if any of the developers want to chime in and give their own experience. But it's a mixed bag, because a lot of the changes to add in a new package manager format, it's a big change. And so working with the community can be both, it's helpful because you're teaching GitLab values, you're saying this is the way we code things, but a lot of times you need to push back and say, and because we have a greater appreciation of how the app should function. So there's some challenges in it, but overall it's been valuable. Like, we made really good progress on the composer format. I know we're working on reviewing a Debian package manager format right now, and there's some interest around adding in support for Cargo, which is the Rust package manager format. So I think the more that we do of these, the better we'll get. But at the same time, it's not turned into this thing that, oh, if we get a community contribution for a new format, it's done and turned around in a week. It's still challenging. It still takes a lot of back and forth and a lot of hand holding.
And I can maybe add a little perspective on this too. I think it's been super, like, it's kind of like a double-edged sword where adding a new package type can be some of our biggest MRs and some of our most like technical changes in our stage. So it can be a bit jarring to work with a community member through such a big process. However, at the same time, I think we're at 8 different package types right now, and we have many more planned. So certainly we can't be experts on, everything that exists. Like I can't, we don't have someone that's a NuGet expert and a Maven expert and an NPM expert all in one. So it's super helpful to get a community member that is an expert on these package types to be able to weigh in how they're implemented and how they should work. And I think that's where we found the most value and in being able to work with community members on these features.
Well said.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
I was wondering, have we had any problems with supporting any of those package formats? Yeah, where maybe someone implemented it, but they're no longer available and we don't have the expertise in-house?
There's been challenges in that we've had to learn. Like we had a community contribution for a Composer, and we had to learn all about Composer. And there's a lot of different, Composer doesn't have packages. They're dependencies that are hosted in source control. So we had to learn about how that works. And but the community members have stayed engaged for the most part. The people that end up, because they put so much work in, like the person who contributed Composer, they're regularly updating documentation and templates, and I see if there's any questions and issues, they'll jump into the issue and respond as well. So the community's been really helpful around this, and I think they've taken a lot of pride around these contributions.
That's great.
I'll just add in too, to reiterate what Tim and Steve mentioned, in chats with other members of the team, I think they would have similar comments as these have been successful in the past, but do require a lot of engagement and involvement time from the team. It can be very challenging when reviewing these large MRs. Is Steve mentioned, one of the interesting sides of this is it gives us an opportunity to help community contributors learn how GitLab works internally, how we structure MRs, how we approach changes, breaking things down into the smallest iteration possible. So that's a really cool side of it, but it also takes time from the team investment from the team into that. So just wanted to reiterate.
Cool. We're almost at time, and I want to just add a closing comment. First of all, thanks, Tim, for being and package team for being the kind of guinea pigs in this new experimental process. And I also want to make sure we take an opportunity to celebrate that the package team has been like wildly successful over the last year. You guys have created a whole new stage and capability and landing point for our customers where we're displacing existing, large engineering effort products. And so that is a testament to your efforts. So thank you for that. I expect that to continue to grow in FY 2022. I know the like tier 0 question in my mind is a validator that people are loving and using and wanting to depend upon these features that you all have developed. So thank you for that continued contribution.
Thanks, Kenny. It's great to hear.
If no other questions, thanks everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.